Okay, right. Can we do the time constraint? Just whatever that comes up from your mind. You may not have the full list of things that you want to look for, or the kind of traits you want to avoid, but just anything that comes out straight from your mind. What are the key characteristics that you would want to look for in one?
Self-management.
Self-management. You need to manage yourself. Great. What else?
Results-oriented.
Results-oriented. Don't waste time, right? You need to don't because you're working from home. Please don't sleep until it's noon time and then do nothing, right? So you need to be results-focused, results-oriented. What else? Stable. How do you mean stable? Not jump frequently. Okay. How do you identify that? Besides the fact that that person doesn't jump, what we call switch jobs a lot in the CV. 除了简历里面我们可以看到就是没有经常换工作。What else? What else can we look out for if we want to look for a more stable person? Personality. Sociable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Loyal.
Sorry.
Loyal.
Loyal. Okay, stable, loyal, and doesn't jump around. Right. So, anything that we want to avoid for remote employees. Lazy. Okay.
Someone who hides problems.
Someone who hides
Problems or issues.
Okay, hides problems. Okay, so if there are problems, they don't tell you, right? They hide the problem. There are two kinds of hiding problem. One kind is more the Asian culture, as in they don't want to tell the bosses the problems. They don't want to bother the bosses, so they don't want to let the bosses think that they are incapable. Right? So that's more Asian mentality. Another kind of hiding problem is more sinister. It's kind of more it's kind of worse. It's like there is a problem, and you may be the one that's creating problem. You don't tell the boss. You can try to hide the problem, and then it becomes a bigger problem. Right? So it's about seeing the problem and not trying to take steps to solve that problem. One is to not tell the boss, and then you try to solve it yourself. The other one is not solving it at all and let a problem become a bigger problem. Right? So there are two kinds of hiding. Some kind of traits to avoid for remote employees, and this applies to all kinds of remote employees. Number one, overly quiet and introverted. Right? Again, on the one hand, we do want to have people who are loyal, who are stable, but when we are looking for loyal and stable people, sometimes we overemphasize a point to the extent that we look for people who are very introverted, because normally, again, this is not a truth. It's not a factual truth. It's more like a general trend. Introverted people tend not to switch jobs as frequently as extroverted people. In general sense, I'm not saying that extroverted people will always change jobs. It's not true. But generally, we tend to think that if someone is introverted, they are more stable, which may or may not be true. But the case of remote employees, you need the person to be a little bit more extrovert for the precise reason that we need people to raise problems. If there's a problem, tell us so that we know how to support you. Be result oriented, especially if you're looking for salespeople, able to go out there and look for customers, grab the boss's attention, get the boss's time, support whenever that is required. So you need someone who is more what is termed as a self-starter, rather than to be overly quiet and introverted. Especially if you are in technical sales. So if you're in technical sales, you're looking for a home office technical salesperson, sometimes the emphasis is you want someone to be very stable, very loyal, and also know a lot about technical details. And as a result, the person you look for, you ended up with, can be overly quiet and introverted. Right? So sometimes we do know that if you're a remote salesperson in a technical sales position, you may not have the technical support to the remote sales customers. So you may actually want to have the salesperson to know a fair bit about some technical details and place a larger emphasis on the technical abilities of that salesperson. But on the other hand, if that person is overly quite introverted, it's because you won't even have the customer to start with. Right, so that's one thing to be aware of. Number two is does not keep others updated about what he or she is doing. Right, just does their own thing, doesn't come in with the reports, or the reports are very vague. Usually, salespeople, well, what is the one thing that salespeople around the world hate to do most? Reporting, right? So salespeople hate to write reports. So if you like to write reports, you are not salespeople, right? So just that. But on the other hand, we do need sales reports for two reasons. One, it's for management reason. We need to know what's going on. Two, even for the salesperson, you need to, because sometimes, especially for technical sales or B2B sales, business-to-business sales, sometimes you have longer sales cycle. Right? Sometimes when you see a customer, the customer doesn't have a need now, but it doesn't mean that the customer doesn't have a need 6 months later or 1 year later. So if you are to re-look at the report 6 months or 1 year later, can you still remember what actually happened? Right? It's also for self-reference as well. So you need to have some, we don't need to have long reports, but we need to have reports that really tell you what's going on. And salespeople, because sometimes they hate reporting, one of the key kind of reports is that when salespersons see a customer, they wrote down, feels good, can keep in touch. Right? There's a report that says feels good, 感觉良好, can keep in touch, 可以继续跟进. Right? And if this is not a sales call report, you may be mistaken it for someone who is going to find a lifelong partner. 好像是相亲的那个 report. And feels good, can keep in touch, can get a number. It doesn't tell anything, and 6 months later, if you were to read back your own report, it doesn't tell you anything. Right? So that's a key thing that we need to emphasize. The kind of people that we want to avoid is what is known as passive aggressive. They encounter problems, encounter issues that they don't like. They don't tell you. They don't bring it up to anyone. But deep down inside, they are furious. They're angry. Right? Only to a certain point. Only when they reach boiling point, then they spill over. They explode. They blow out. Right? So these are people we want to avoid. The Chinese translation is 被动攻击行为. So that's 被动攻击的这个性格. So these are things that we want to avoid. We want people who are more forthright, who's got better management of their own emotions. Who's got better emotional intelligence in a different way, especially they are working alone. Right? The more they are working alone, the more social traits they require because they are alone. Right? It's different from if you hire scientists, if you hire engineers who work in a lab. Yes, they don't need to have social skills because they work with machines and the machines are in your office. Whereas people who are working alone, who are working in far places, the more they're alone, the more they need to have some level of social skills or social behavior inclination. Right? Now, what we want to do is to have a more scientific way of looking at exactly what we need. So I'm going to give out notes. We don't have time to go through all these things here. What we'll do is we'll jump into the conclusion. What we have is, we want to look for someone to fill in a position that works remotely. But what are the key criteria that is key to success in that job? Sometimes we don't have a clear idea. And what we have here is a simple questionnaire to kind of straighten out your thoughts, to kind of map out your thoughts so that you can come up with a key criteria of what kind of people will be the most likely to succeed in this particular job, right? Over here, what we have are the printed copies. What we really do is we have the online version, and we have all these questionnaires on the online, and it generates the report, which I'll share the report in a while. So I'm just going to give out the paper version over here. So it's going to be 3 per person. And just some good news. We have now till end of the month, 31st May. We will be having free trials for this system online. So if you want to have a free trial, just let us. If you want to have a free trial, just let us know, and we can arrange for that. That ends on 31st May if you want to have that. So just some things we don't have time to go through all the questions, just to have a feel of what are some of the questions we ask. It's a simple questionnaire. It can be done in 15 minutes. You can, if you're a hiring manager or HR, you can do it on your own, or you can sit together with a colleague or a few people who are involved in the hiring and do it as a team. There is also what is known as, on the 3rd page, it's actually an observation. So there are 2 ways of doing it. One is to do pages 1 and 2 online, and you get a report. Way number 2, which is more detailed, is you do pages 1 and 2 online, and then you invite other colleagues, the peers, to actually give the observation words on page 3. Right, so page 3 is actually for the peers. If you have existing, for example, if you're looking for remote sales employees, and you've got existing remote sales employees, so what you do is the hiring people will do pages 1 and 2 online, and you get a report based on the hiring people, and you get other remote sales employees to do page 3 to get an input. What do you think are the key success criteria on a job? Right. For pages 1 and 2, sometimes what we can do is also to think about who are some of our key successful employees for this position. And if you were to fill in pages 1 and 2, what are some of the things that they do, the best employees in this position? What are some of the things that they do that usually people who are performing poorer don't do? Okay, so these are some of the things that we can think about. So here's a mock-up example of a regional sales. Can be a remote sales employee, or even it can be a remote regional sales manager. So it's a sales manager who is in charge of regional offices, and this person can have other remote sales employees as well. And this is based on something that has more technical element to it. So there's some aspects of technical sales. And again, we won't go into the explanation of the graph chart. It goes into different definitions of different roles. We just go into the description. By the way, this is done by a system called Belbin. Usually Belbin does assessment for people who are working in teams. What we don't usually know is that they got a tool like this that they can actually assess what will be the ideal person doing the job. They assess the job itself. So here we go. This is the report of regional sales for technical product which requires some level of consultative sales. The job is, as it is specified, requires someone who can use exploratory skills to advantage. You need to go out there and find customers, right? Number 2 is the best candidate is one who gets out and about, meets others, opens up new opportunities and possibilities. You need someone who is really, really extroverted, going out there, create new opportunities, going out there and find new leads. And you need that kind of person. This job also demands someone who possesses strong driving qualities. right? Before we are looking for someone who is stable, loyal, yes, those criteria are important, but to the job itself, sometimes that person needs to think more like an entrepreneur. Like this person needs to be very someone mentioned about result oriented. Right? It's got to be very result oriented, being driven to get results. And that drive has to come from internally. The drive is not like, the boss is chasing after the employee saying that, where's your customer? Where's the sales? Where's your leads? How are you following through? It must not come from outside. It has to come from inside, internally, that person really is out there to get results for the company and for himself. Okay, this is one key criteria. The likely candidate will have the strength of character to overcome opposition and self-confidence to get around obstacles and rules that stand in the way of progress. Okay, this is a very long sentence, got a few key points. One is you need to overcome opposition. And there are two kinds of opposition, externally and internally. Right, externally, for obvious reasons, if you're a salesperson, you need to overcome objections. You need to overcome opposition from customers. And if you're selling high-value, complex, complicated technical products, there will be different buying influences in the customer's organization. So some people will love you, want to buy from you. Some people within the same customer's organization will hate you and want to buy from the competitors. So you need to find out how you overcome or circumvent those kind of opposition. The other kind of opposition is actually internally. Right? And it's not about opposition to company policies and things that you cannot break. Sometimes it's opposing forces. You need to coordinate with logistics, supply chain. You need to negotiate on behalf of your customer with finance if that customer qualify for commercial terms or credit terms. Right? You need to talk to production or engineering or R&D if the customer requires some level of customization. So these are some kind of opposing forces that exist internally, and you need to be able to overcome those opposition, have the self-confidence, get around obstacles that stand in the way of progress. Right? If you need to work through your boss to get things done, you need to work through your boss to get things done. So in a way, this person has got two primary qualities. One, you need to use your brains. Number two, you need to have a very thick skin. 脸皮要厚. Right? You need to know brains to find out who's in charge and how to work your way around. And your face has to be very thick to really ask for what needs to be done. Okay, so that is what is required. And the thing is, what you see in this report is what we call an ideal situation. You may not be able to find someone that has 100% match in this report. Right? What you need to know is if you have different candidates, you've got different people, you need to find out which of these are even more important, and if the candidate actually matches this criteria. And this applies whether you are hiring externally or you are developing someone internally to be in a remote or regional sales. This specification underlies the need for a high achiever, wants to achieve results and exceed results. The work entails a fair degree of attention to detail, accuracy, and quality control. And this is because we base it on a technical sales. So not only you need to be outgoing, not only you need to be aggressive, but also you need to have some level of detail because it's technical. Right? So again, you may or may not get the perfect combination. In this job, persuasiveness is likely to prove available quality. In this job, this is writing in first person. If you're in this job you have been cast as an entrepreneurial role, very enterprising, wanting to generate business. You should therefore be searching for every opportunity that presents itself. Sometimes remote salespeople have this complaint. They say that they don't have leads. They don't know where to find. The company does not give them enough leads or potential customers. But the point of remote salespeople is to find a way. Right? If you have no leads, find some way to get leads. Right? That is what is required. Once, hi. 这还没动。Right, once you have found an opening that is worthwhile, you must be willing to expend energy to make it happen. Once you have the leads, can you actually make the leads to become a sale? And especially if it's a long sales cycle, can you follow a lead for 6 months, 1 year, 1.5 years, or 2 years before it becomes a sale? Do you have the kind of stamina? The job has strong social dimensions attached to it, and the way in which you are seen by others will be important. You need to establish someone who knows what's going on, who knows the technical details, who understands the customer's business, etc. You will need to stand on your own feet and take personal responsibility for the job. Those that I've put into block and italics, these are things that I find are the really, really important criteria, right? You need to take personal responsibility for the job. It will be important for you to make your own decisions without relying on others. Now, this, on the one hand, you need to decide what you need to do. On the other hand, it doesn't mean you break company's rules. Right? Making your own decision doesn't mean that you bend your company rules on your own. Okay, so there's a fine line to be understood. So these are some of the things that we use after using the online system we generate a report. And beyond the first report, if you get the peers to do an observation, this is how the observation list of observer works look like. Some of the key things that come up on top is like, are you willing to adapt to different situations, different different customers, different product groups, and so on? Are you enterprising enough? Can you generate something out of nothing? Can you treat your position as if you're running your own business? Are you self-reliant? Are you competitive? Can you see support needs? Are you uploading that? Are you persuasive? And so on. Imaginative, I suppose, is that sometimes you need to create your own solution. You don't have a solution, but you create a solution and somehow work it backwards to persuade the company to customize something for the customer. Right? Sometimes you need to have out-of-the-box thinking to solve customers' problem. And key impediment means key criteria that are negative. These are things to avoid. Right? So we need to avoid someone who is totally inflexible. We need to avoid someone who is indecisive. We need to avoid someone who is frightened of failure. Why? Because any sales job has always a high degree of failure. Why do I say that? If you call upon if you were to call upon 100 new customers, how many of that 100 new customers will eventually become actual customers? If you were to call upon 100 new prospective customers, 潜在客户, how many of those will become actual customers? 10 to 15. Right? If you're one of the best salespeople in the world and you've got one of the best selling products in the world, at most you are going to have 50% at most. And even that is rare. It's really, really rare. And what it means is you got a failure of at least 50%. In most cases, you have a failure rate of 80% and above. Right? Because only 20 of that new 100 prospective customers are going to become real customers. So as sales, it's about, you cannot be frightened about failure. You need to go out there, try. It doesn't work, go to the next customer. Or you keep the prospective customers till next year and see if they've got a new need next year. You cannot have someone who is totally unadventurous for a remote sales position. This person has to be adventurous enough to try out new things. and so on. So these are some of the things to let us know whether have we selected or hired the right person for the right remote position, right? And of course, the tool can work for both remote and non-remote face-to-face positions. So that's something that we can refer upon. The second thing is, how do you then manage remote teams and employees? So one thing is we need to break down work into different aspects. And very briefly, we can have the various categories of work. I'll just show everything in one picture, just for easy understanding. On the left-hand side, what is known as tasks. Tasks are work that requires that person to follow strict procedures. There are existing procedures to follow, and it's work that you need to follow those procedures, and there is also close monitoring. This is called tasks. Responsibilities, on the other hand, are work that doesn't have existing procedures. It only has a goal, and the person doing it, or the people who are doing it, needs to find out their own procedure, needs to map out their own procedure and let you know exactly what they will be doing. Okay, on one hand is follow procedure, get a result. On the other hand is there's only an expected result, go figure out how you are going to do. Right? The things that are on top here are things that are simple enough that can be completed by an individual. Those below are things that are complex and needs to be completed by a team. Now, just to have a quiz on two things. In most of our remote positions, do the people do more of tasks or more of responsibilities? 如果我们是那个远程的岗位，对方的工作性质更多是左边的这种差事比较多，还是右边的职责会比较多？ Remote employees. It's likely to be more responsibilities because they need to be self-reliant. They need to figure out, especially for remote sales people, there are no standing rules or procedures. Different markets behave differently. Different customers group will have different needs, and so on. So they need to find out exactly what's going on and map out their own procedures rather than to follow strict procedures. So they need to have that kind of that way of thinking. Number two, which is easier to manage, tasks or responsibilities? Tasks are easier to manage. The most difficult thing to manage is when you have responsibilities. That means only a goal. How to do it, no one knows. You just need to figure out, and it's done by a team. You are not just managing one person, but different people, each doing different parts to the job. So that will be the most complex to manage. So how do we do that? This is what we mentioned. Something that's recurring or requires a lot of guidance and direction. We mentioned that for remote employees, we don't have the time to give a lot of direction, a lot of guidance. We are far away. So that person will need to have self-guidance and self-direction. So it's more likely that anything that's remote, anything that's far away, don't see them face to face, they probably will need to make up their own procedures. They probably will need to have a lot of self-management. Right, so this is the quiz we mentioned earlier on. Most of remote work is actually responsibilities, not tasks. Right? People out there, they make their own kind of rules and their own way to achieve the results you want. How do we then make sure that the responsibilities are well managed remotely, as I asked earlier on? This is what we do. We set goals. And normally, if we were to say goal setting, what is the key tool that we think of when we say goal setting? 通常讲目标设置，我们一般用哪个工具？ Smart. Okay, SMART goals are good if you want to set something that is specific, measurable. If you want to do some performance management work, that is what is good with SMART goals. What are some of the weaknesses of SMART goals? Just to let you know a bit, SMART goals tell you what you need to do. It doesn't tell you why you need to do it. Okay, so that is the key thing about SMART goals. It doesn't tell you why you need to work. And when people are working remotely, the motivation, as in why we are doing all this, becomes more important. Right? You don't have a lot of time to do a lot of monitoring, or you won't be able to do as much monitoring as you would like to. Even the remote monitoring, the little part that you do actually requires you to put in a lot of time and effort already. So you don't really get to do that much of monitoring as you wish to. So you really need that person to be self-motivated. Self-motivation is not automatic. It doesn't mean that the person is self-motivated or not. You need to give the person a reason why they need to be committed to a certain goal or result. Right? So this is why we have things like clear goals. So the first thing about clear is, firstly, are the goals challenging enough? And number two, what are some of the challenges if you want to achieve this goal? Right? This is just an acronym, doesn't mean the steps are such. Number two, you need to be limited by time. This is similar to SMART goal. Number three, what is the end objective of this goal? After you achieve this goal, where does it lead us to? To understanding, we just use something that is prevalent in our lives, right? How many of us have got school-going children at home? Well, your German are different. You're French. Right. So if you're Chinese or if you're Asian, the key thing is, if you've got school-going children at home, you want your kids to study hard, right? So that they can get good grades. The end objective of studying hard is to get good grades, right? And the end objective of getting good grades is to go to a good school, go to a good university. And then the end objective of going to a good university is to get a good job. And of course, the end objective of getting a good job is to get a good life. That is how the logic flows. Now the question is, if you get good grades, will you, or rather, if you go into a good university, will you get a good job? Maybe, maybe not. And the most defining thing is, when you get a good job, will you get a good life? We don't know, right? So that's the point about end objective, as in, does this goal really lead us to where we are going, or is it's just an assumption? And sometimes companies say that, oh, we want to have this goal, and the goal is so that we will get a certain award at the end of the year. We'll get the award like 3 years in a row at the end of the year. And the question I always ask them is, okay, so you got this award, so what? Is the end objective beneficial to the team, or is the end objective only beneficial to the boss, because the boss feels happy that his team has got the award 3 years in a row, and everybody feels that we are working so hard for the boss, not for themselves, and they may not be as motivated as such. Right? So it's important to find out the goal is there, but why do we want to do this goal? What does this goal lead us to? And is this end objective something that we all want to have? Okay, that's number 3. Number 4 is whether the goals are agreed upon. Does everybody buy into the goal? And can we have the animated steps to achieve those goals? Especially when you are dealing with responsibilities. You don't have procedures. So what you need to do is to get the people who are doing the goals to tell you or to map out what are some of the steps. Not as detailed as a procedure, but at least some steps of how to get the results. And last but not least, we have, is this goal required? And the definition of required is what will happen if you don't achieve this goal? What will be the negative consequences of not achieving this goal? That's called required. 必须的意思就是，如果你达不到，会有怎么样的一些负面后果。Right, so these are some of the things that just to clarify our thoughts. Now, like I said, this is not the acronym here is not how we start off with. Right, this is just the acronym. Usually, if you want to build a goal, you start off with what is the end objective. Okay, just why we want this goal and what does it lead us to? This is where we want to start first, right? And the rest of it can be what are some of the challenges, and followed by why is this required? What will happen if we don't achieve this goal? Is it all agreed upon? But when do we need to finish by? And then we go into what are some of the animated steps of what needs to be done. In terms of animated steps, here is an example. If you want to have animated steps for reaching a territory sales goal. So number one is, first of all, what is the goal? What is the purpose of your territory? Right? Who will be the key customers? How much sales you want to bring in? What will be the key products you want to sell? So these are some of the goals and purpose. And usually for a territory, we will identify who are the key customers of that territory, because the customers will drive the results, right? And we'll go work backwards into what do they want? What will be the kind of products that we can pitch them that they are most likely to buy from us? So this will be identify goals and purpose, and then we need to plan. How are we going to roll out? Which customers to go first? Do we have the right information? Do we need to bring along a technical, what we call a sales consultant / technical sales engineer to follow us to see the customer, etc.? We need to plan that, and then we need to go out and talk to the customers, get appointments. Once we secure the appointments, we may need to do some level of resourcing customers. We have some requirements. We need to work internally to give customers what they want, whether they want samples, whether they want demos, whether they want to have a customized solution, whether they need to have some customized delivery schedules, payment terms, etc. This is what we call resourcing. We need to do some coordination, get the right resource to the right customer. And then we put a proposal for the customer, we do some negotiation, and negotiation we may need to bring our boss along to negotiate with the customer. And finally, we need to do some follow through, as in asking the customer to have their deliveries arrive on time and so on. I mean, this is not to say all remote sales behave this way. And in fact, these steps are supposed to be come out from the remote employee. Right? So when you ask a remote employee to say, okay, this is what you need to do. This is your gross target. Right? This is what you need to do. Can you let us know what you think will be your steps so that we know what you'll be doing to achieve your goal? So these are some of the things that we let the remote employee, whether it's one person or as a team, to map out so that we both have, number one, common understanding of what will be the steps, because different teams and different remote employees for different purpose will have slightly different steps. It's not a standardized procedure. And number two, since we know that this is what you'll be doing, we have a common ground for reference. 我们有一个共识. Right, and if I want to know how's your progress, this will be an outline or a map of what will be the progress. Right, and again, and this is what we can do as a brief group discussion. Right, so do we have remote employees that are currently managing or that we are familiar with? I can be very democratic here. We can choose to do or not to do this exercise. Basically, we can use a goal or an assignment that we are looking as an example and just map out the steps. We'll just keep in view this. If we've got time, we'll come back and do some brainstorming work like this. Usually what we do is, whether it's for remote employees or for project teams, what we do is we get the project teams to map out a goal that they need to achieve, and then map out the steps in the goal, and then in each of the steps, find out what kind of people is best suited for different steps. Especially if you are not just managing a remote employee, but you're also managing a remote work team. So this can be this will come in handy just to find out what are the steps are required, and in each step, what will be the best people to do the job. So for that purpose, I'll just go back to this slide again. So sometimes in project groups, we tend to think about, if you want to get, say, you want to find people who are good in planning, right? We'll tend to think about, in terms of planning, we'll get the boss to do the planning. May or may not be the case. Sometimes we get the salesperson to do the planning. We also understand salespeople are usually not very good in plans. Right? Salespeople are very action-oriented. Plans is not a strong trait of salespeople. But what we really want to do is that person having the right temperament, the right behavioral styles to do this kind of work. And number two, is this work also critical to that person's achieving of the goal? In the case of planning, I would suggest that the salesperson have some outline of what they intend to do, and then have the boss or someone else to help them work out a more workable plan that we can use as reference. It's a work of both people. So every step over here may require one or more people, and may require different people to do different things, right? Even things like, say, proposing. You need to have, you may need to do some resourcing. You may need to get some people to help you to write out a professional proposal. Or in terms of negotiating, you may also need to call on the boss to go with you. So these are things about having the different steps and matching the right people on every step. And the right people can be people who are remotely and people who are in-house. Right, so just so we can actually make our work a bit more clear. Does this make sense to everybody? Now, last but not least, how to be an effective leader of remote teams and employees. And the key thing is, this is again based on different surveys. Number one, tireless. 任劳任怨. Right, because chances are you are not going to just manage only one remote employee. You are going to manage a number of different remote employees and remote teams in different parts of China, Asia, other parts of the world. Right? If you are managing only China, good for you, because at least everybody is in the same time zone. If you are managing global remote employees, and then if you got someone in the U.S., you got someone in Europe, they've got totally different time zones. It's worse. Okay, so that you need tireless. And the problem with remote employees is that if you have in-house teams, you can meet them together. For remote employees, it's all one-to-one. You don't see them face-to-face, but you are always or almost always talking to them on a one-to-one basis. It requires more time. And every different one of them are facing different challenges that requires your time to help them resolve it. Okay, so that's even though they may be very self-reliant, they know how to handle themselves, it still requires you to be tireless in terms of having the kind of attention to different employees. or remote employees. And worse than that is, you cannot rely everything on conference call or video conferencing. You'll need from time to time to go down there and visit them, and if they are salespeople, go down there and visit customers with them. So it requires a lot of traveling time, it requires a lot of managing time. Different people has got different needs, so it really requires you to work around the clock. So managers managing remote employees are actually required to work harder, unfortunately. Right? So that's one part. Number two is you yourself also need to be goal oriented. Are you focused on a goal? Can you set goals so that your remote employees can achieve those goals? Right? Are you clear about the goals, and are your goals aligned with your remote team? Number three, you also need to be encouraging. Why? Because if you were to work for long periods of time away from your main office, chances are you may feel, as a remote employee, you may feel that you are not part of the company. You don't feel that sense of belonging. Sometimes you feel, and these are based on interviews and observations, you may feel that you are being abandoned by your company, 被遗弃. Right? So those are some of the emotions of different remote employees. Just now we mentioned about why we don't want to have people who are overly introverted, because the more introverted they are, the more they feel that they are abandoned. It's more likely. We're not saying that they will, but the likelihood is higher. Right? So as a result, not only you need to be tireless, you need to be focused on goals and achieve your goals. You need to be the dad and the mom. You need to be the father and mother. 要当爹要当娘. Why we say that? Usually, the father figure is usually the more task-oriented person. Meet the goals, get the targets, make sure you do what you need to do. You drive people. And on the other hand, you need to nurture people. You need to encourage them. You are part of the team. You got resources. If internal departments don't know you, come to me. We'll help you to resolve some issues. So you need to do a lot of encouraging work. You need to be approachable so that when your remote people have got problems, they can look to you to, number one, help them solve them, and number two, pacify them. Right? 就是你如果说有远程的员工遇到问题，你还得就是什么，就是平易近人，能够就是让对方找到你，一方面来帮他们解决问题，另外一方面来安抚他们。Well, just to solve the problems, and as well as to pacify them. You need to be constructive. You cannot be overly critical, because sometimes remote employees, the moment you're overly critical, it's easy for them to just leave. Right? They are not bounded by the social bonds between them and the rest of the other employees in their own company. They're alone. So if you're not constructive enough, if you're overly critical, it's easier for them to leave. So we mentioned about stability, we mentioned about being loyal. Loyal and stability is a two-way street. Loyal and stability is a matter of how two parties come together. 忠诚跟那个稳定是双向。On the one hand, yes, a person needs to have some level of commitment to the job, to the goal, to the company, etc. That is required. On the other hand, if the company doesn't make the person feel that this is a company, this is an environment, this is a boss that the employee would want to be committed to, then you may just lose the employee. Right? The old saying is about the employee attrition, is that people join a company because of the company, the brand of the company, and people leave because of the boss, right? The immediate supervisor, right? This is even more true with the remote employees, because the immediate supervisor is very much likely to be the person within the whole company that this employee has got the most amount of interaction. Right? It's almost like an underground organization, 有点像地下党. Right, where your only source of communication is your immediate supervisor. right? And if you as a supervisor, as a boss, as a manager, employees does not manage well, that person finds it very tempting to leave. Right? It's a two-way street in that sense. And last but not least, it's about being authentic, being true to yourself and true to showing your true self to the employee as well. It doesn't mean that you tell the employee everything. Sometimes certain things are confidential, or certain things may hurt the employee's feelings. We may not want to tell them everything. But if you want to tell them something, tell the truth. You can choose not to tell. You can even tell the person that, well, this is really sensitive information. It's not convenient for me to share with you. You can tell them straight. But if you want to share something, tell the truth. Right. So this is about being authentic. You also need to show that you have genuine concern for the employee's well-being. That's about being authentic as well. You're not just concerned about the goals, which are important as well. You are concerned about being goal-oriented and achieve the goals for the company, but at the same time, you need to show that you are genuinely concerned about the well-being of the employee who's working out in some far-flung place. So these are some of our requirements. So it's not easy to be the manager of a remote employee, and this brings to mind a quote from Sun Tzu of War. If you can march 1,000 miles and not feel tired, you will be undefeatable. And that's the case for managing remote employees. It's very tiring. You probably need to work like 24 hours a day, even if everyone is in your same time zone. Different people are going to have different kind of problems. They will come to you at different hours of the day, right? So that's one part for you as a criteria. The other thing about remote employees, mentioned about how we can keep them loyal, how we can keep them stable. The key thing is about the goal. We talk about clear goals. So if our goals are aligned from top to bottom, you win. Right? It's also from Sun Tzu of War. Well, in war, the ruler, the king, basically sends the general to fight with armies in some far away land. It's also similar to a remote employee. And what is the biggest fear is that the general, instead of fighting the enemy, surrenders to the enemy and brings enemy to fight you instead. Right, so it's a question of loyalty, but the underlying question about loyalty is are both your goals aligned? Okay, so this is some question. How much freedom do we need to give to our remote employee? It really depends on how mature the remote employee is. If you give maximum freedom, assuming the remote employee is very mature, knows what to do, what not to do, just give the person whatever they need to do, just do it. There's no communication required. The next level is take action, and after doing, tell me what you did. Right? In Chinese, it's called 先斩后奏. Do first, tell me later. The next three levels can be assess the situation, give me a proposal, do it unless I say no. Tell me what you are going to do. If I don't say no, just do it. The next level is assess the situation, give me a proposal, do it only when I say yes. Right. And last but not least is assess the situation, present all the facts, I will decide. Now, for remote employees, if you are doing one, you are killing yourself. Literally, right? You are doing what I call long-term suicide, 慢性自杀. It's way too detailed for you to handle that. Right? On the other hand, if you want to really do 5, again, that will be over stretching the freedom too much. You want to be informed of what's going on, not so much of controlling the employee, but for your own sake as a manager, you need to plan strategies. You want to know what to do next. It's good to keep informed of what's going on in different markets, even though you fully trust a person. So say that somewhere between 2 to 4 will be appropriate for remote employees. For someone who's new, especially new to the job, skills level not so high, not so mature yet emotionally and skills as well, maybe we'll go for 2. Assess the situation, let me know what you're doing, I'll tell you yes or no. And when the person becomes more mature, then you go to level 3 and then assess the situation, let me know. If I don't say anything, just do it. And then if that person really did a good job, then just take action, and after taking action, let me know what you did. Right, so this are some levels of freedom. Now, key thing also in terms of management, whether it's in-house or external or remote employees, is that as managers, you need to be tolerant of the mistakes that your employees and the team will make. Right, your people are going to make mistakes. The only people who don't make mistakes are what? When they do nothing. 多做多错，少做少做，干脆不做。Right? So if you don't do anything, you won't make mistakes. If the employee is going about doing a lot of things, expect mistakes. The question is, how do you make the mistakes as cheaply as possible, as low cost as possible? How do you make sure that the employees learn from their mistakes? Right? You need to have a tolerance for mistakes, and there's more so for remote employees because you don't see them in action. You don't even realize that there's a mistake until way in advance in the future. Right? So that's something that you need to live with, as long as they learn from mistakes and prevent future mistakes. Oops. Uh-oh. I think there's something happening in the slides. What I was saying, there's a slight error. But what we're saying is also the more transparent you are, or the more transparent the remote employee is with you about what's going on, the more likelihood we are going to give them autonomy. Right? Just for those who want to understand English words, over here is autonomy, and right below is transparency. If your employee is going to give you a lot of transparency, just let me know what's going on, the more you'll be willing to give them a lot more autonomy. Just do first and tell me later. The more they are going to hide something from you, the more you are going to reduce your level of autonomy with that employee. So it's something that we need to discuss and let the employee know that if you want to have autonomy, which as a remote employee I presume that you want to, it's best that you let me know everything about transparency, have full transparency about what's going on, and that there is very high trust between both parties, and then we can have a lot of autonomy. You feel we have a strong leeway to do whatever you need to do. Right? This is again quoting from Sun Tzu of War: the leader who does not interfere with capable generals will win. If you have a capable manager who's out there fighting the war for you, and you don't interfere, as long as they're capable, and number 2, as long as their goals and your goals are aligned, you win. Right? And this is based on the level of transparency, as we have mentioned earlier. Questions? You win. Comments? Yes.
Do you notice any changes in the way of managing remote employees? I mean, especially in China, over the last, let's say, 5-10 years. Have you know the economical? Do you think it is linked to the economical changes? To make my question more accurate.
Sure. Well, as a whole, in terms of changes in managing remote employees, as a whole, we find that remote employees are getting there are more and more remote employees in China. Mm-hmm. Right? Remote employees in China started with sales employees generally, mm-hmm. right? And usually Soho, home office type of sales employees who are stationed somewhere. But more and more, because if you generate sales in some faraway place, let's say you generate sales in Xinjiang, which is far, more and more you need a supporting team to service the customers there, not just a salesperson, maybe some level of technical staff, some level of logistics staff who are stationed there. So you need to have smaller offices around China. Right, so in terms of that trend, it's getting more and more, we got more and more decentralization of the command and control. Right, but on the other hand, in terms of the way of managing remote employees, I still haven't seen that there are structural changes to the way that remote employees are being managed in China. As in, there's remote employees has got certain policies or certain benefits for them to be remote employees. If they are they entitled to flying to head office on regular meetings or some kind of occasional meetings when the need arises? These are some of the things that are not very much in place. It's not just the cost factor. Right, if you want to have remote employees flying back to main office for meetings and to get to know people in the main office, there are costs involved for sure. But it's not just merely the cost consideration; it's the total lack of consideration. There's no consideration of the feeling that if you have supporting staff, supporting departments, whether it's supply chain, whether it's production. And so on, if they know the salesperson, it's easier for the salesperson to communicate with them so that things get done quicker. Right? There needs to be some level of face-to-face connection. A lot of times we don't see that there is a thinking to allow the remote employees and the main office staff to get more frequent interaction, apart from the once a year annual meeting in Hui, or the once a year company outing. Apart from that, there is not much of a meeting between the remote staff and main office staff. Yeah. But the trend is that because China is huge, and China is not just China itself, Chinese companies are expanding to Africa, expanding to Latin America. That's Chinese companies. For European American companies, there are offices throughout the whole APAC, and sometimes Shanghai over here is the regional HQ for the entire APAC region. So in a way, a lot of offices are remote offices, whether those employees are working alone or with a small office somewhere, some faraway country, right? And this is a trend that we see that. We get a lot of decentralization in terms of having a lot of remote presences all around China and all around Asia. Yes?
I think it's really a challenge for the remote people to be linked to the head office.
Yes.
So I'm curious, do you have some best practice of sharing? Because nowadays,
yes.
I think what you just shared, like the Shanghai office with some other country offices, those part, because all the people speak languages, normally
sure.
the higher level people, so for the communication, I think that's much easier.
Sure.
But for the Shanghai headquarters to communicate the remote
sure.
staff all over China, this is really a challenge.
Sure.
So not sure if you have some best practices for sharing how
right.
to integrate those people into the organization.
Right. Like I said, there needs to be some more interaction, more opportunities for remote employees to go to the main office for meetings and even for workshops, for training, so that they, number one, feel that they are part of a bigger team, and two, if you want to inculcate in them company culture, best practices, the more they are being interacted with the head office or main office, the more likely they are going to follow what are best practices, company culture, and so on. That's one part. Number two, it's also how we conduct our virtual meetings, our conference calls. Right? So the first part is about cultural mindsets, behaviors. The second part is how do you actually get things done. So if you have virtual meetings, one of the key thing is that how many of us have got frequent virtual meetings, whether it's conference call, web conferencing, and so on? You have that frequently? Yes? What are we doing besides, when we have virtual meetings, what else are we doing besides doing the meeting? 当我们在开虚拟会议的时候，除了在开会，我们还在做些什么？ WeChat, check emails, right? Do something else, prepare proposals. We are basically kind of multitasking on a lot of things, and what happens is we don't really commit enough focus to the meeting itself. So what we suggest is if you want to have virtual meetings, two things. One, we get people to say, be focused, don't do anything else. Number two, so that we will make sure that they suffer for only a short period of time. We make it short meetings. Right, virtual meetings should not be, by right, should not be more than half an hour long. Right, the maximum ever you can go is 1 hour, but that is, even that is, it's way too long. By the time you reach 30 minutes, you are going to lose people's attention. Right, so it's the best is if you can finish the meeting within 20 minutes, even better. So what it means is that instead of having long meetings with a long agenda, have shorter agenda, only one or two things to discuss, shorter meetings to make sure that people are focused on what they're doing. Right, and of course there are other things on pre-meeting preparation on what to do, what to prepare, and we go to the meeting, we can discuss some key points, everybody's focused. Right, so those are what we need to do on inculcate on virtual meetings. 3 is that it's the reverse of 1. 1 is we get remote employees to come to the head office to have more meetings, have more workshops, make sure you get immersed in what is the company culture. 3 will be the reverse. As manager, how often do you get a chance to go down and see your remote employees face to face? Right? Even if, let's say, you got different remote employees in Western China, in different provinces in Western China. You may want to plan a week to go to the entire Western China region so that you spend 1 or 2 days with different sub-regions within Western China. So it requires that level of interaction with the remote employees so that they feel that they are part of the company, part of a bigger team. Does that kind of answer the question? And I do understand that this morning it's hard to get transportation because there are a lot of people who are snatching away our taxis to attend the conference. We actually did the online survey or online tool to select the right kind of people to be the right remote employee. Right? Not everybody can be a good remote employee, so it's a matter of selecting the right people with the right behavioral tendencies to be the right remote employee. Further questions? Right, no further questions. We haven't decided what we want to do for next month yet. It's likely to be either on a leadership or a sales topic. We haven't really decided what we want to do. We will definitely keep everybody posted what we want to do for the next Power Breakfast. On top of Power Breakfast like this, on and off, we also have afternoon events. On and off that we either organize ourselves or we co-organize with some other partners, and the afternoon events are likely to be in Chinese. Okay, so again, we'll keep everybody informed of our other events. And with that, if you want to have more juices, fruits, or more coffee, please feel free to do so. If you have certain questions that you feel that you feel more comfortable talking to me one-to-one on one-to-one basis, always welcome to do so. So thank you for your time. Thank you for making the time. I know it's difficult to get transportation this morning, but thank you all for making it today, and we look forward to see you next time. Thank you.